Today, just in time for Spooky Month, I'm giving my 2 cents on the new Disney Channel show, The Ghost and Molly McGee. This is an interesting one. I've been seeing people talk about it a bit, but not as much as you would expect, considering that it's a vaguely horror-themed or horror-adjacent release in the month of October from Disney, when Disney's already been getting a lot of hype from other great shows. The things I have been seeing about it are pretty good, so I decided to give it a chance. The premise of the show being pretty simple, that a ghost named Scratch, who is considered the worst of ghosts, but whose area is sufficiently miserable, and we'll talk about why that's important in a minute, lives alone in an old rundown house until the McGee family, a mixed-race family with an infectiously optimistic daughter, Molly, moves in, and in a bid to try to scare her away so that she won't take up his attic space, Scratch accidentally binds himself to Molly, and now she's convinced that they're best friends. The first episode is spent on establishing all of this, as well as establishing the characters' personalities, all of which are diverse and interesting, with the McGee family being overall pretty positive in general, but still, each of the 4 of them are distinct in their own ways. And with Scratch being a bit of an enigma, it's clear that he has a lot of depth to him. He likes his alone time, he wants to be left alone, but he's not unreasonable. He doesn't entirely dislike Molly. And while he does have a selfish side, he's not a bad person, ghost, whatever. The whole accidental binding thing reminded me a bit of the Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, and how the Grim Reaper accidentally bound himself to the titular characters. But while in that show it was primarily his arrogance as well as the ruthlessness of one of the 2 kids involved in the scenario that cost him his freedom, here it's just Scratch's bumbling nature. And whereas the Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy is kind of mean-spirited, in fact, most of its comedy is derived from the fact that it's kind of a dark show, honestly. This show seems like it's shooting for a positive bent. Molly seems like a very positive character, and she even has a habit in these first couple of episodes of spinning even the negative stuff that Scratch says into positives. But otherwise, it seems like their relationship is going to be kind of the same, because Grim didn't entirely dislike Billy and Mandy either. There were positive aspects to his relationship with them. There were even moments where you could say that they were genuinely friends, and there are moments like that between Scratch and Molly as well, especially at the very end of the first episode as well as towards the end of the second. Their relationship is primarily antagonistic now, but unlike Grim with Billy and Mandy, where his relationship, the baseline each episode was antagonistic, it really feels like eventually Scratch and Molly are going to reach a point where they're friendlier than they are not. And even though the jump from episode 1 to episode 2 made it clear that time passes between these episodes, events happen that we do miss. We don't get to actually see them. And so it seems like continuity and lore aren't necessarily going to be a big part of this series, and that maybe I'm wrong. Maybe their relationship won't really grow or change that much. We'll just see it play off of the same dynamic each and every episode. I have reason to believe that that's not the case, because we do see in episode 2 the start of some greater arc with a character named Andrea. Her name is definitely pronounced Andrea. Don't even bother checking. I'm right about that. As well as we see a blossoming friendship start to form between a character named Libby and Molly as well. And the fact that it seems like those things are very clearly going to be explored later, it tells me that there is going to be direct continuity between these episodes. And also there's the lore of ghosts themselves. The very first scene of the first episode was a council of ghosts summoning other ghosts from Earth to assess their performance. If their area of Earth is sufficiently miserable, then they'll be sent back to keep doing their job. If it's not, they'll be banished to some punishment dimension or something. It's vague, but it is clear as a thing they don't want to happen. And you could argue that these characters were only introduced because Scratch does go to them at one point to see if there's some way out of the curse that he accidentally essentially cast upon himself. And there is. He has to get Molly to willingly leave the house with no intention of ever coming back. Another nod that there's going to be continuity between these episodes, as that is a thing that he consistently tries to get her to do. But the fact that there are consequences for things becoming better in these areas where these ghosts reside, and the fact that at the very end of the first episode, things in, I can't remember the name of the town in which this is set, became slightly less miserable because of Molly being there, tells me there is going to be a lore arc in this show. I'm kind of excited about that, because the ghost stuff in this seems pretty interesting. It almost feels like, you know how in Danny Phantom, if you've seen that, sometimes the ghosts definitely had previous lives, but sometimes they just seemed like supernatural beings that had probably always been that way? I wonder which one it is here. Was Scratch once a person? Did he die in this house? What are the rules for ghosts in this universe? The ghosts in this seem to be able to change size and shape at will. They're very amorphous, which is great because the expressions in this show are fantastic. And having characters who can canonically in-universe squash and stretch really helps them convey a lot of emotion. The ghosts in this look pretty freaking fantastic for comedic stuff and for scarier stuff. But if the ghosts aren't bound to a specific form like that, it makes me wonder, what are they? So, that's there too. I don't know how big a thing that's going to be going forward, but it's at least holding my interest. And I guess that's how I would describe this show overall. It held my interest. The first scene between Scratch and Molly, I was smiling through the whole thing, but otherwise it just kind of held my interest. It wasn't bad by any stretch. It was good. I will say it was consistently good. I don't think it was ever really great, except maybe during the songs. It seems like there's a song in each episode, not sung by the characters, but that just plays over events. Those were pretty freaking great. But I could definitely see this show shaping up into something that does more than that. And in fact, I did like the show. I don't know if I'm going to cover this regularly or not. I guess I'll allow you guys to weigh in on that. I'll try to remember to put up a poll as well for anyone who doesn't want to watch this particular video. And I guess just to get it out of the way, I did think these first episodes were good, and a good introduction to the kinds of scenarios we're going to see in the show, as well as to the conceit of the show itself. They weren't amazing, they didn't blow me away, but they did their jobs very well. So there's your review of them. But if you guys would like to see me talk about the show more, just let me know and I'll work it into my schedule somewhere. You might have to wait until like Amphibia goes back on break and then I'll catch up on it or something. But I'll get it done. Still, if you're looking for something that's light and fun, that has a, I would say, surprisingly and pleasantly positive lean to it, that's also like season appropriate and has a really good aesthetic to it too, like it's a good looking show, this is definitely one to check out. It's definitely worth a shot. But either way, that's been my 2 cents on The Ghost and Molly McGee. What do you guys think of the show if you have seen it so far? Though please no spoilers past the second episode. That's the second 12-minute episode. That's all I've seen up to. Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below. And while you're down there, you might as well like the video, share it with anyone else you think would enjoy my content, subscribe if you haven't. You can also check out the links to my various social medias, as well as the many ways you can help out the channel. Those will be in the video description. But either way, this has been AJ22, and I will talk to you guys later.